Okay, that's all done. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm almost crying. That program so far. Couldn't do any videoing in there for health and security HIPAA reasons or something, I'm sure, but oh, okay, hopefully I pass that sucker. I needed to get tested so I can go into the cardiac unit at the hospital and get my procedure done. The garden is going absolutely wild right now. Anyways, I thought I would just show you a little bit of the garden before we head inside. Let me give you an overview for today's video. I really want to do three things. First, I want to give you a quick update on my health. Second, I really want to kind of dive into the bulk of today's video, which is going to be on why study the Bible. And third, I want to update you on plans for this summer. If you're new to the channel, let me just give a brief introduction. My name is David Paris. I've taught with Fuller Seminary and other schools around the world for the past 20 to 30 years. And the goal of this channel is to take what I've been learning and teaching and make it accessible and readily available to a much wider audience. So if you enjoy these videos and find them beneficial, please subscribe to the channel and let others know about them as well. So let me tackle number one first, give you a brief update on my health. First off, I have good days and bad days. Last Friday when I edited the video on Pentecost, the church's birthday, was not a good day. So I went back and re-edited that, and the revised edition is up. And I had originally planned on producing two videos for this week. One, this video, main content on why study the Bible, and then the second one, sort of my vlog. But given the way things are going right now for me, I don't have time for doing two. And so I'm going to do one combined video for this week. Hopefully, if everything goes well, I'll have the procedure, and then by Monday or Tuesday, I should be up and on my feet well enough to start cranking out videos for you guys once again. I wanted to say that I appreciate all the prayers and kind words. It's really been encouraging to hear how you're all standing behind us in this. Now let's hit the main topic for today, and that is, why study the Bible? It might seem like a silly question at first. I mean, after all, we've got all of these great translations today that make the scripture very, very easy to read. We've got it available in numerous translations. We can watch videos about it on YouTube. Why study the scriptures? And also, we're heirs of sort of this Reformation doctrine called the perspicuity of Scripture, or the clarity of Scripture. In other words, the Reformers taught that all the major doctrines concerning the church and salvation were clearly taught within the Scriptures and could be understood by anyone who could read. Now, the thing we need to remember is that this doctrine was developed as sort of an apologetic argument against the Catholic Church during the time of Reformation. They really wanted to pull the authority out from under the clergy and give it to the lay people in the congregations. Now, there's a number of reasons why portions or large sections of the Bible are difficult or tricky to understand. And I'm going to go into just a few of them here, but really to highlight the need that we have for studying the scriptures. So reason number one, the Bible was written in very different languages. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew or Aramaic, the New Testament in Greek. And these languages are very, very different from English. So we have great translations today, but as we go back and we study these languages and come to know more about them, we're always revising and editing and correcting our translations. Now, as a reader, what this means, if you've got a Bible with those little notes that say, an alternate translation, or some Bibles translate it this way, this is a great way for you to notice those portions that are rather difficult or tricky to translate. Translation is not a static job. If it were, we would all be reading the King James Bible in English right now. Second reason why we study the Bible. The world in which the people lived during the time of the Bible was very, very different from the world that we live in today. In fact, I often make the point in classes that a person who lived in 1900 was closer to the world of the Bible than we are to them. So much has changed in the last 120 years that it has profoundly altered the way that we live on this earth. So let me just go through a couple examples of how the world that they lived in is so profoundly different from ours. If you were born in the ancient Near East, you only had a 70% chance of making it to your first birthday. If you survived past 1 year old, you only had a 50% chance of making it past 10 years old. And then it continued to drop off from there. If you were a woman, we know from epitaphs on gravestones and other inscriptions that the average age of a woman during that time was the ripe old age of 23 to 25 years old. And this is because so many would have died during their childbearing years. Or consider the world of travel. Let's say you're in a city or you're in the countryside somewhere. Your primary mode of transportation would have been walking. This means that you had a distance of about 20 to 25 miles that you could walk in a day. If you weren't going to another town or another city, this means the radius of your world would have been 10 miles out and back. Your world, your community, everything that you knew revolved around that 10-mile circumference. Today, we can go to an airport and hop on a jet and comfortably fly halfway around the world in less than a day. It's absolutely remarkable. Or how about how we've transformed night and day? The invention of the electric light bulb brought cheap and widely available light to the world. Prior to this, back during the biblical times, lighting in a house, that was extremely expensive, and they put off poor amounts of light. When the sun went down, all of your daily activities ceased. You would withdraw back into the safety and protection of your house because you didn't have light to be outside. Even something like a little flashlight or something like that would have been revolutionary during that day. Communication, technology, dentistry, any of these areas have transformed our lives in a myriad of ways that really place us in a very different world from the world that they lived in back then. So we need to study the Bible so that we understand their world, and when they talk about things, we understand what they're talking about. We truly live different lives today, but yet we're still human beings. We suffer, we love, we rejoice in things, and we all die. And so on another level, we are connected with them in a very existential sense. So when it talks about someone grieving for somebody in the Bible, we immediately understand and know what that's talking about. But there's other areas that we need to study in order to be able to understand. The third reason why we need to study the Bible is because we're constantly learning new information about it. Now, a lot of this information when we read it isn't so much tearing down the Bible, but it helps us read it and interpret it in a much more informed and appropriate manner. The fourth reason why we need to interpret the Bible is because it's an incredibly complex book, especially how it's organized. So let me explain what I mean here. The Bible is organized by several different principles and patterns. So for example, you start the Old Testament and it starts off with the first 5 books, the Pentateuch, and then it moves into Joshua and Judges. They kind of follow a historical progression. And then you have the prophets all collected at the very end. We tend to have the wisdom literature and the Psalms stuck in the middle, and they're organized according to themes and thematic ideas, not according to history. You come into the New Testament, you get the 4 Gospels stuck right next to each other, but as I've said in other videos, they were probably written after Paul's letters. Then you jump into Paul's letters. At least we have the letters organized together into one big group here, but they're organized according to length. So the longest towards the shortest, and then you put the personal letters, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon, towards the end there. The reason why I'm bringing this up is just to show you that this is a complex book, and it takes time to study and get your hands around this thing and begin to understand it. And the final reason why we need to study the Bible is because the context in which we are living never stays the same. History is always confronting the church with new questions and challenges. The past few weeks with COVID and then the racial unrest in the United States that's been taking place just really rips the veneer off the idea that the church has got all the answers or we fully understand the message of the scriptures. We have questions now about how do we handle pandemics, social distancing, maintaining churches during stay-at-home orders. How do we apply the Christian message? How does it relate to these issues? It's just like the challenges I'm faced right now with my own health issues. I never had heart problems my whole life, but because of my health challenges and where I'm at, as I study and as I prepare the text, I'm constantly asking new questions. What does this mean? How does this relate to my life? Is there a promise? Is there a challenge? Is there a correction? Is there hope that's being offered in this text that addresses where I'm at right now? The same thing for our world. How does the message of the Bible help the church recover or remember or get back to some of the questions about racial justice and equality that we find in the Bible? Another big challenge that confronts the church is how political and cultural institutions are always trying to control the church for their own means, purposes, and ends. And this was so visibly demonstrated as I was preparing this video yesterday that it was astonishing. On the news, you had videos of President Trump having the National Guard and security services violently attack a crowd outside the White House that was peacefully demonstrating at that time in order to clear about a 1-block buffer zone so that he could walk across the street to St. John's Church and then hold up a Bible as a way to say that he's defending the church and he's protecting the Bible. But yet at the same time, the clergy and the staff at that church were some of the people that were attacked so that they could clear this buffer zone. This is a clear example of someone trying to convince the church that they need to be aligned with him, and not because of anything that he's doing, but because he wants to use the church for his own political ends and purposes. It's one of the main reasons why we need to study the Bible and interpret it. Now, what I'm not saying here is that God is a Democrat or that he's a Republican. Jesus, God, and the Bible, and the church as well, should stand above these political parties in opposition to and in judgment over them. But we don't allow the church to be controlled by political organizations or groups that spend a lot of money to try and influence us. I'm going to throw in one more point here because this is an important one. Don't worry, you won't be charged for this. This is pro bono. And that is, we study the Bible because we have to. If we don't study, interpret, understand, explain, and apply the Bible, then the Bible as a text stands the risk of becoming some dry, dusty old book relegated to an antiquarian bookcase somewhere. It will no longer have relevance for us. And so we, as the church in this generation, are tasked with studying and interpreting and applying and being faithful to its message. But this is a challenge that we need to then pass on to those who come after us. At the very beginning, I said I had 3 goals for today's video. I wanted to give you a quick update on my health. I wanted to focus the majority on this question of why study the Bible. And then the third thing is plans for the summer. On June 22nd, I start teaching a course through August on the parables of Jesus for Fuller Seminary. Now, what I'd like to do on this channel, and this is going to be an experiment for me, is sort of coordinate that material with the videos for this channel, so I can produce some very high quality and useful videos for you to help you understand the parables. And I hope you find it useful, and I hope you find that it's something very, very beneficial in your life as well. I hope to be back with you next week. It's really going to depend on how well the cardiologist tinkers around inside my heart and does tests on it. Hopefully I will be back up on my feet by Monday and recovering as the week goes along, but I really am planning to get a video out for next week, at least one. So stay tuned for that. Remember to subscribe, let other people know about the channel, all the typical yada, yada, yada type stuff. Until then, may the peace of the Lord be with you.